Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to complete this expose of Einstein and the search for the truth. And I think we have exposed what the true facts are, especially seeing that his science papers did not have any references. I have made a point of mentioning the references as to who really did what, when, and how. Now, I have to be quite blunt and say, to summarize what he is trying to say is the real physical laws, how the universe really functions, you have to understand that this universe is a galactic universe. There's intergalactic forces. That's the main force of how this universe functions. It does, of course, great complex things within the galactic universe and intergalactic forces. But it is not a universe based on a mathematical schema in which Einstein says that light is the ultimate velocity. Well, and on what he has presented, especially when he says you have to use irrational thinking, I say nonsense. I continue now. I'll read from my notes. The simple addition of velocities, the velocity of sound waves is the constant 343.2 meters per second, regardless of the train's motion. Remember that when we discuss light, rests on obvious common sense. That's interesting. He says you have to think irrationally. Now he says it rests on common sense, what he's presenting. Now this plagiarist is trying to win you over, in my opinion, by appealing, instead of to his irrational hit and miss plagiarism, he wants you to use common sense now. And now it has been applied to problems of compound motion. That depends on the question about the universal law of addition of component velocities. That's Galileo's universal law. Now, and he says since the time of Galileo. In his original paper on relativity, Einstein uses another example of motion utilizing a railroad train. Again, there's a crossing, marked this time by signal light. I think we've mentioned this, but I'll say it again. Which flashes a beam down the track at 186.284 miles a second. The constant velocity of light, denoted by c. A train steams towards the signal light at a given velocity v. So by the addition of velocities, one concludes that the velocity of the light beam relative to the train is c plus v when the train is approaching and the signal light, and c minus v as soon as the train passes the signal light. This, please notice, similar to the previous example of the sound, the velocity of sound. Now, I put this note. I say I have spinal injuries and arthritis, and I'm wasting my valuable time, really, because if you look at it, how does the train know if the signal coming at it is at the velocity of a sound wave or the velocity of a light wave? The train has no way of distinguishing what it is coming at it at what velocity. So what Einstein is saying is because light is so fast. Now, you remember Galileo said that for all practical purposes, light on this earth is instantaneous. Now, what Einstein is doing is taking this instantaneous light and giving you the answer. He figures what the answer is and then says this is the problem and this is the answer. Well, it's going to match, and he uses a mathematical schema to show how it is correct by mathematics. Well, mathematics is a representation of what you are putting forth. Math is a shorthand expression of what you are putting forth. Mathematics itself is not a physical science. It's an abstract discipline. Mathematics is just representation. So you can let it represent what you wanna, especially if you say this is the answer. Now this is the problem and this is the answer. That's the way he's doing it. Now, he says then the Michelson-Morley experiment proves what he's saying. The Michelson-Morley didn't prove about the velocity of light and its receiver. The Michelson-Morley experiment was to detect if there was a ether, if there was just a ether. And the way to detect it was to see if there was any variation in the velocity of light as it went in the direction of the ether drift or against the ether drift. And there was no detection. So now they're saying, well, is there a ether? And 50% says yes, there has to be some form of a medium for light wave, like sound wave, to propagate through space. And some says, well, we've never found it, so I don't think there's an A ether. Now, Einstein says, well, I don't think there's an A ether. Now, he's correct in joining them, but what he does then is he take that and then cleverly twist it with a couple of theoretical experiments into saying, well, this is the way it is in relative motion. Now, Galileo had, and he mentions it, the principle of relative motion is what he called it. Poincare, through years, then specifically said that his relative motion is titled relativity. Same thing that Einstein's saying. Only thing Einstein said is, with him, it's a special theory of relativity. Now, so, like I have here, you have to have a new rule, he said. And the rule he picks is Lorenz's transformation equation. Now, I've gone through dotting the I's and crossing T's about Lorenz's transformation equation. And that is x prime equals x minus v squared over square root of 1 minus v squared over c squared, where c is the little c. And then in me studying that, I said there's no way Einstein can decree c is the ultimate velocity, because you have phase velocity and group velocity. And that is an actual, from crest to crest, that is greater than the forward velocity of light. Absolutely. But they now take and say that doesn't count, because that's just sort of a staccato wave to wave. It doesn't transfer any information. That's, in my opinion, rather quite an interesting way of saying that you have to agree that light is the ultimate velocity. Well, then you put the answer and then say, now this is the way we're doing it. And look, it comes to the answer by a mathematical schema. Isn't that what I've been saying and now emphasize? So, I didn't say what, because then on a one-to-one, I politely said I'm modernizing the Lorentz-Einstein transformation equation. And he said, are you sure? I said, I'm sure. He says, like when? I said, well, I think CERN, maybe in 20 years. They're doing work now with accelerating particles to where they're close to the speed of light. And they don't announce it, but they might have particles at least equal to the speed of light that they can actually obtain. And then we'll get it in 20 years an increment greater than the velocity of light. So theoretically, at least, I'm sure I've broken the light barrier. Just like in your day, he broke the sound barrier. Theoretically, at least, I'm sure I've broken the light barrier. Then he took his name off of the, if I would say to Lorentz-Einstein, he'd interrupt me and say, no, that's Lorenz's transformation equation. You see. Now, once you do something in science and it's passé, it's ancient, so to speak. Absolute true facts in this expose of Einstein and search for the truth. Now, what I then have to say is that if you or especially you say, well, there's a question, whatever, you can email me. The email address is Pure Christians, capital P-U-R-E, capital C-H-R-I-S-T-I-A-N-S, purechristians@yahoo.com. Now, therefore, I say, in my opinion, I want to get to where, as I started before this series of videos, of Poincare, saying this is my relativity, and see what he puts forward in mathematical physics, and then put Einstein's field equations of his relativity, and then compare. With that, I say, of course, thank you, and any questions, anytime. I'll take a polygraph, lie detector test anytime, because I did light application of electromagnetic radiation. Absolutely, my original work, and I must, by our Constitution, obtain my honors and reasonable compensation. Thank you.